Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. Listen, this podcast exists because we want you to win. And what is leverage, you ask? Leverage is the strategic advantage. It's the power to act effectively as a songwriter, as an artist. That's why we called it the C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. Brilliant! Let me introduce you to my co-host and good friend, Mr. Brent Baxter. He's the one that came up with that, by the way. Brent is an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And what I love about Brent is he helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and gosh darn it, he hooks you up with the pros when you're ready to make that move. And you can find Brent real easy at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns a Daredevil Production. They help you find your sound, and they help you grow your audience so you can become the artist that everybody loves, so you can get paid. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production, singular, no S. And there is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
Woo, lots of people are grateful for that, I can promise you. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing all right. I'm happy to see a little bit of sunshine outside my window.
Yes, it's going to be in the 70s today. I am over winter. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm permanently over winter. You know,
yeah.
I'm through my 18 years. I got enough, and then I got out. Hey, real quick, if you like this content and you feel like your contemporaries, your peers, your bandmates would also like it, share it. Please take a moment, leave a rating and review on the podcast. It helps us tremendously, and it makes us look legit to other people that are out there that want to stick their toe in the water. They want to know if we're for real or not. So we appreciate everybody that does that, and subscribe so it automatically comes into your magic little iPhone or your magic little Android on Tuesday mornings and Fridays now. And last but not least, guys, join the C.L.I.M.B community. We got a great community going on. Like Jonathan Cochran. There's a lot of usual suspects in there that I see. People helping people, the most wonderful people. But just search out the C.L.I.M B community on Facebook. Ask to be let in. It's a private group. We will let everybody in. If you screw up, we will roadhouse you. Don't come and spam the Jesus out of us. Like we're not gonna like that. But
we will roadhouse you.
We will roadhouse you. But with that, we got. You know what we're going to talk about today?
What are we going to talk about today, Johnny?
We are going to dive into. It was going to go a little deep here. Today, but there's this amazing video that I saw that just really shook the rafters in my soul. Will Smith put it out there. He's got some great little inspirational videos.
I know that parents just don't understand. I mean, that really
don't understand.
Changed my life. I mean, I got to school to learn. It's not for a fashion show. I was like, boom.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
Okay, sorry.
The video that I'm talking about is fault versus responsibility, because I deal with this every single day with a handful of my relationships in this industry and my artists, and it's a big old pothole until you really understand the difference between the two. But before we get into that, we get another 5-star review, right?
Yes, we do. I would be happy to read it off. This is a tasty 5-star review. It's from GMHYFD. It just rolls right off the tongue.
That's like a rap name.
GMHYFD.
What's up, GMHYFD? Yo.
Maybe so. So it says, these guys are pros. It's 5-star review. It says, I am a pro songwriter with lots of radio and streaming hits. I also teach lyric writing in Europe. I recommend that all my students check out this podcast, starting with episode 1. I like it for myself because it reminds me of the things I should remember when I'm writing a song. 5 stars and 3 exclamation points. Thank you, GMHYFD.
Love that. Love that.
I'm trying to.
I bet it's in Europe too. I'm going to need a couch to crash on when I come over there sometime.
There you go. So yeah, man, that's awesome. So he's a pro. He's had success and still having success, and he's teaching, and we get to be a part of that. A part of that.
Yeah, still finding value in this podcast.
Yeah, man. So thanks for recommending the podcast and helping spread the word. And hey, recommended by pros. There you go.
There you go.
Other people that are doing it. We ain't just making this stuff up.
That just happened. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about fault versus responsibility.
Yes.
This is a common
crutch.
A common misconception. Like people get their wires crossed on this all the time because they use a situation that happened when it's not their fault to avoid the responsibility of the mess that needs to be cleaned up. Mm-hmm. In the wake of such an event, right? Mm-hmm. The first time I learned this lesson, by the way, I was probably in third grade, I think, fourth grade.
Yeah.
Didn't get it, man. I didn't get it right off the bat. But so I got a mini bike, right?
Okay.
Little 50cc Honda mini bike. It was super cool.
Uh-huh.
And I'm driving around in like this kind of driveway that our house it was the same driveway for like two or three different houses. So my neighbor, this kid named Chip, he was older, right? And he was super cool. And
his name is Chip.
His name was Chip. Like you got a neighbor named Chip. He's your hero.
After something in a casino or a Ruffles bag. What could be?
I thought Chip was cool. I thought the world of Chip. Chip wanted to ride the mini bike. I said, okay. Now, if you can imagine this, have you ever seen the movie? Just so I can spill this out. Have you ever seen Vacation with Chevy Chase?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
So my parents had just bought like a brand new, and I swear to God, it was the same color as the one from. Just get that weird green color with the station wagon with the fake wood paneling on the side.
Yeah. we had a wagon for a while ourselves.
Yeah, my parents just got a new one. Like it might have been like the first new car that they'd ever purchased, and so. I think it might have been 2 weeks old or something. Chip wants to ride the mini bike. I'm like, hop on. And so Chip's like popping wheelies and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, that's so cool, man. I want to be just like Chip. And then
I'm getting validation. I'm getting acceptance.
Yeah, he's going to love me. He's going to love me because I got a mini bike. We're going to be pals now. Mm-hmm. You and me, right, pal? You and me, Chip, right? We're pals, right, pal? Right, Chip, right? You, me, you. And boom, he loses control of the damn bike and crashes into my parents' new car. And I get grounded. For 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like my dad is just pissed, right? He's pissed, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not the one that drove the bike into the car. Right. It wasn't my fault. And he's like, but it was your responsibility, Mm-hmm. Like you were responsible for that bike and you gave the responsibility to somebody else and he crashed in the car. That comes back on you. You're going to pay the price. Mm-hmm. And that seriously took a little bit of time to sink in. Like I might have taken me 6 months before I connected some dots. Like I still think I got screwed on this.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like I remember that. But here's the deal. It's not your fault that, let's just go real heavy for a second. I mean, it's not your fault that your dad was an alcoholic, physically, emotionally, and maybe sexually abusive jerk. Mm-hmm. But it's your responsibility to deal with those traumas. It's your responsibility to try to figure out a way to function and get back to
society and the world.
Back to the world emotionally and spiritually, because it's your heart that was broken. Even though it wasn't your fault, it's your responsibility to try to repair that, to try to move forward, and to try to make that happen. And this is where so many people go wrong. Now that's a heavy one.
That is.
And that takes a lot of work. I've got a very close friend of mine right now that's very real way in her mid 40s. It's dealing with that. Not a sexually abusive thing, but a bad-ass crazy mom who she's now just uncovering that, like this is a mess that she left me with, and it's not my fault that the mess happened, but she's taking responsibility to clean it up because it's her heart, right? It's her life, and she wants to be better. But how about, with artists, right? I have a artist that I work with that's extremely gifted. And it's not a Daredevil artist, so it's just a friend of mine, okay? But we hang out, and somebody that I've been very influential in their lives, and kind of comes from the and this doesn't help, by the way. So for the millennials out there listening, I mean, he definitely came from the community where you get eighth base blue ribbons and crap like that. Everybody gets a ribbon for participation and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm trying, and you know what? And so stuff goes wrong, and he's like, well, it wasn't my fault, and here's why. And he wants to explain it to me. And I constantly have this conversation with him.
Why something happens to kind of derail his career momentum or something like that. And he's
exactly. And it's not my fault, but it's your responsibility to have a career. Because that's what you're down here to do.
It's definitely anybody else's responsibility for him to have a career.
That's right. And there's a lot of potholes. I mean, let me save you the suspense. You're going to get knocked off your horse a lot, right? This is not the end of it. It's going to keep coming. It's not about focusing on trying to stay on the horse. It's about knowing you're going to get knocked off. It's not going to be your fault. And then you got to get back on the horse, right? So the lesson with the motorcycle, the mini bike, has served me well, because it wasn't my fault that the hairband genre ended, right? Right when I was talking with Rob Cavallo at Warner Brothers Records, and they're sending us secret stuff that they just signed, and they're listening to songs from us, and we got the magic code to put on the envelope that you got to do to get past to get off the pay no mind list and then onto the desk of the guy and the whole thing. That wasn't my fault. That it all
just Kurt Cobain's fault.
Evaporate. Yeah, it's Kurt Cobain's fault. I mean, God, the record was great. I'm not complaining, but I mean, it just they lifted up the needle on the record, and we didn't have a chair. It wasn't my fault that the financial industry blew up. And then I had built this whole business with tons of overhead. Guys, I'm talking like $15,000 a month in advertising expenses. Forget about what the business overhead was with the people that were employed and working there, and rent and blah, blah, blah. And forget about my personal overhead, my mortgage, my car payments, my insurance, my food. Forget about all that. Okay. And then all of a sudden they just closed up shop and said, you can't sell any product. And it took over a year for them to open it up again. So, I mean, did I have savings? Did I have, that's true. Got wiped out. It wasn't my fault, but it was damn sure my responsibility to move forward from that, not just check out, and to figure out what did that mean for me? And for me, it meant that's about the scariest thing. I think one of the scariest things I've ever been through, it's just like, what just happened? What am I going to do? Right. I mean, I had committed contracts to that. It's not like just stop advertising. I made year-long contracts like that. So I got,
people expecting to get paid.
Yeah. $170,000 worth of hay.
We expect you to advertise this product that you can't sell. Yeah.
And this is,
not my fault.
Yeah. So, wow, mortgage is like, I need to be paid. I mean, but it was my responsibility to work my way out of that and deal with it. And ultimately it was a blessing. See, it came back here. So sometimes these traumas, if you're looking at them from it's not my fault, then
that doesn't lead to anything.
That's my point. Yeah. That's my point, right?
I mean, it's
you're
not
just
my
down
fault.
in the dark hole.
It's not my fault that I sing like a horse and was born outside of Nashville to outside the music industry family.
Yeah.
Yet I wanted to be a songwriter. That's not my fault, but it's my responsibility to go meet some people. It's my fault I still sing like a horse. I haven't done the voice lessons and the work, but it was not my fault. It was my responsibility to find something that I was great at, to find a seat in the music business. So I was
as a lyricist,
right. So it was I responded to that responsibility by going, I'm going to go all in on lyrics, because that's not my fault that I'm good, have a natural talent toward it, but it's my responsibility to cultivate it if I wanted to do this.
There you go.
Maybe it's not your fault you were born 1,000 miles from Nashville or New York or LA and don't know anybody in the music business. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility you better get to know some people.
Yeah. And you better be self-aware on where you're really at, and come at it and work hard on the things that you need to improve on. It wasn't my fault that I couldn't sing either, but when the first band I toured with, the Idols of American Youth, I was a guitar player, and we had like a Jeff Tate, like, singer dude. Like, this dude was amazing, right? Yeah. Biggest jerk in the world, but oh my God, he could sing and just crush it. Like, he had that falsetto that would just shatter glass, and it was thick. It wasn't like that thin. Yeah. It was like Judas Priest. Like, and that was the stuff we were playing. It was like crazy. Yeah. But he had to go. Like, he was a mess. He had to go. So I said, I'm going to sing, because I can definitely entertain better than he could entertain. And the band believed it. They fell for it. You know what I mean? Like,
a testament to your entertaining prowess.
Yes, that's right.
Exactly. I can sell stuff.
But then I knew, like, okay, now it's my responsibility. I gotta figure out how to sing, like, because I suck, like. And I tell people, like, straight up, I clawed my way to middle management, but it wasn't ever going to be about the singing for me. It was going to be about the entertaining and the songwriting and the band, Yeah. And so, taking that responsibility, we formulated the sound that was not all about Johnny singing, It was lots of background vocals, lots of stuff going on. The same thing with, it was Madonna, right? She can't sing. J-Lo, she's never going to win American Idol. Right. But they're icons and they're multi-millionaires for a reason. It wasn't by mistake. They didn't get lucky. Right. They outworked everybody else and knew exactly what they were doing. And they didn't focus on the voice. So for those of you out there who are like, on the fence, with your artistry, right? And you're like, well, until I can get my voice to the point where I can win American Idol, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna tap the brakes a little bit. And, man, it's your responsibility to get there and connect with people. It's not necessarily your responsibility to win a singing contest, right? Yeah. It's not your fault that your voice is the way it is. To your point, like Bob Dylan, look at Bob Dylan. Yeah. He can't sing anything. Like, and he sounds weird when he sings. He's got a really bad voice, man. Like, straight up, like, not good. Right. But his lyrics were they changed the world. Yeah. So he focused on, just like you, like, okay, I'm going to focus. I can't do this over here, so I'm going to focus on this. Right. And really come out there, And, you were talking before, Brent, about. Yeah, we beloved Razorbacks. My beloved Razorbacks had a tough football season, and we ended up I had a vote, but whatever. They fired the coach at the end of the season, and and people were talking about on sports talk stuff before and after, and they were talking about, well, why did he did so well at Wisconsin? How come he came to Arkansas and didn't have the level of success, right? He went to like 3 straight Rose Bowls or something, And so it was a big get, but then you come to the SEC and come to Arkansas, it wasn't quite the same. Like, what was the difference? And they're like, well, he had it's harder to recruit maybe to Arkansas, in the SEC, because we don't have that natural talent base as a state, being a smaller state. He had some key injuries. They had some, people leave early for the NFL because they did have talent. And they didn't, he goes, yeah, that's and none of that's his fault, but it is his responsibility, because it does come back on him. The win-loss record is ultimately his responsibility. It doesn't matter that, our all-world, center, Ragnow, got hurt halfway through the season, was done for the year, but he's going to go on and be, first or second round draft pick kind of thing. Not his fault, but it is his responsibility to hire coaches and to coach up depth behind him. Yes. That way, the next guy that steps in, may not be an All-American, but he's going to be good, because you recruit to that and you develop players for that. If you don't, that's still your responsibility. And that kind of stuff that was the first time I'd heard it put like that. Not your fault, but it is your responsibility, I think. So it's funny that you're mentioning this now, but it's the same thing with your music stuff. Yeah, it's not my fault I was born 330 miles from Nashville. Not my fault that I'm not naturally musical and nobody in my family knows anybody in the music business. So what? figure out how to do it. There's opportunities out there.
Yeah. Now, if it's 10 years later and you still don't know anybody in the music business, that is your fault.
Yeah.
Because you are choosing not to make connections, because pretty much anybody can, if you go about it the right way, intelligently and patiently and diligently.
Yeah.
Because if I still didn't know anybody in the music business 15, 20 years later, it would be my fault.
Yeah.
I made different choices. I moved to Nashville. It's like, okay, it may not be your fault that you were born in Alaska and that far away from Nashville. But if it's, but now if you're 25 and you still aren't in Nashville, that might be your fault.
How about this one? How about it's not your fault that music prices, for a record are down 62%. Yeah. And it's not your fault that the market changed and that the normal mode of marketing a song or an artist that you grew up with, that you were marketed to this way. This is what made you want to become an artist. That way doesn't work anymore. It's not your fault that doesn't work. But it's damn sure your responsibility to figure out how it changed and what you're going to do about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I had something like that where, and I've told this story before, but some years ago, I went and met with somebody at a label and played him, some of my music. And he said, they gave me you've been one of the best writers in town, or one of the biggest writers in town in the 90s. This was like 2012 or something. And he talked about just how the way of communicating lyrically had changed and that sort of thing. And I'd been doing some of that, but that wasn't on those songs I played for him. But it's like, it's not my fault that the way people communicate has changed lyrically in country music. It is my responsibility to assess it, realize the reality of the situation, and to adapt. Right. And I have changed how I write, and I have, had success after that. So it wasn't my fault. The market shifted. So it is my responsibility. Nobody else's responsibility.
You want to be a songwriter. That's right.
That's my responsibility. Right.
Yeah, man.
So, somebody said, you can write yourself into this business and you can write yourself out of it.
I like that.
That's true. It's very true.
I'm going to say, I think artists put too much weight sometimes, a lot of the times, on certain events, right? Mm-hmm. Like,
I got a cold right before the American Idol auditions.
Yeah. Or the American Idol audition. Like, I'm in this third round. So then they're all like the whole thing, it seems, their whole future hinges on whether or not they're going to get that up. Right. Get on that show. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, man, you gotta, or I just met, this one super famous producer or this one big high up record executive at a cocktail party. And all of a sudden that becomes the focus. Right. Mm-hmm. And, man, it's not your fault that they don't know you. Right. Right. It's not your fault that you don't have a good enough relationship with them to make that happen yet, but it's your responsibility to try to figure out how to cultivate that and how to do it. And it's your responsibility to create the career that you want to have and to create the life of happiness that you want to have, doing something that you love and trying to make a living at doing something that you would do every day for free. Right. So the fault versus responsibility. I mean, I want everybody just listening to my voice right now to think about that. Like, where have you been making these mistakes? Where have you been letting stuff go because you say, well, if it wasn't my fault, then it wasn't my responsibility to fix it. Right. Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example. So I had sophomore year in high school, I had a teacher, a math teacher. It was geometry. This guy's a total 1,000% douche. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly disliked me. Right. Mm-hmm. I had long hair. He hated that I had long hair. Mm-hmm. I got his math class, right? Like, remember in math class when you went there and you always had 40 problems that you had to do, whatever the math class was. Right. But it was like 4 rows of 10 problems. And so the 4 different rows, this is what I figured out, right? Were always the same problem with just different details, right? Mm-hmm. And so he wanted you to do all 40 problems. Well, man, I had band practice. You know what I mean? I had things I was working on. So I would figure out the how to work the formula, which is what I thought the spirit of school was supposed to be. Learn how to do this problem, and then I would do it. Well, he would call people up And if you remember, geometry is a time consuming thing, right? Like it takes, like you got to draw it. So he would call people up to write their answers up on the chalkboard. And he would always call on me because he knew I didn't do all my homework, right? But he was pissed that I was still getting like an A in his class, you know? And I'm like, dude, like, you know, and he would move me around in class. Like, John, you look too comfortable there. I want you to move over there. And I mean, it got so bad, like literally so bad that, you know, my classmates were coming to me like, dude, like you got to switch teachers. Like he hates you, you know? And I'm like, I know. Like, and this was traumatic for me. Right. And so I remember going home to my dad and just be like, dude, like you gotta do something. Right. You're here to protect me. Yeah. Take care of this guy. He's wearing me out, you know? And my dad's like, here's how I'm going to help you out. I'm going to do nothing. And my dad's a Marine, you know? So, you know, like, you got to learn how to take care. I'm not going to be around here to help you all the time, you know? And he's like, look, he said, here's what I'm going to tell you. You're going to meet an a-hole like that every single day of your life. That's not your fault. But it's your responsibility to deal with it. How are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do to get this guy to perform for you? You know, like what is it? Do you have to switch classes? Do you have to switch teachers? Maybe that's an option. Is there a conversation, an uncomfortable conversation you're going to have with him? You know, and so that lesson, man, served me very, very well because he was right. Every single day I meet an a-hole like Mr. Kelly. Straight up. And I don't mind saying his name. Like, but I've had certain work situations, right, where there's somebody above me that's just coming down on me, doesn't like, feeling threatened, whatever. And I figured out, because it's not my fault that he doesn't like me and that he's got something coming down on me, but it's my responsibility to get him to play in the sandbox, right? And so that kind of like, what's the word I want to use? Like, I don't know what word that is. Like, it's not manipulation, but I mean, I'm getting him I'm coming at it from different angles to figure out a way to work with him, right? Because I don't have a choice. I got to work with him, right? I can't just quit my job. Like, I had to do that. And so when you start looking at life from what your responsibility is, as opposed to whose fault it is, then to your point, Brent, now you're looking for solutions, right? Well, it's my responsibility to get past this. So now you're starting to, it's a mind shift, a very important mind shift.
I think so. And another slice of that might be asking yourself, okay, what does this make possible? This bad thing. Like, okay, I was not born to be a singer. Okay, what does this make possible? Well, I can really focus in on my lyrics and I can be known for that. That's what that makes possible. You know, because I am naturally gifted at words, not naturally gifted at music. What does that make possible? It makes possible, well, maybe I can be that guy. You know, maybe you were, just those sort of things, just saying, okay, this bad thing happened. What does that make possible? I lost my job. What does it make possible? I guess I can go ahead and move to Nashville. Or, I've had bad breaks in life. Well, what does that make possible? I have a deeper well from which to draw when I write. Like, it's not what I wanted. I don't want this bad stuff that happened in my life, but what does it make possible? I'm going to be able to reach people that have been through that kind of junk that I've been through. I can draw on that when I write and hopefully offer help and healing for people and hope. That's what that makes possible. It's finding the kind of the silver lining.
Yeah. The silver lining, and that's another way to put that, know? And when you look at the silver lining, then you're taking responsibility for your heart, right? You're taking responsibility for your soul. You're taking responsibility for your lot in life. And I tell you what, like, this is a hard one to get across to a lot of people because, especially with the news now, news is terrible. The news is all about, here's why your life sucks. Right. Because of this or this or this or this or this. And they want to assign blame, and they want to make it somebody else's fault. And it's something that really upsets me. It's one of the reasons why I love the Will Smith stuff so much, because I think that some of the narrative that's out there in our society is very, it's not serving well. It's just about ratings, right? Right. Like when you talk about white privilege, okay? Like white privilege, the narrative of white privilege means that if you're not white, your life sucks,
Right.
And then to a lot of people, it's going to be like, don't bother trying. You're not white,
Right.
When the better narrative would be like, here's a bunch of minority people in this crazy world that we live in that's imperfect, right? And they've all got 6-figure tax returns, and let's hear their stories, right?
Yeah.
That would be, to me, more productive, right? That would instill hope in people, which is like what we try to do with this podcast. I mean, we're here to serve. We want you to win. We want you to think about things the right way when you get caught in a rut, when you get in a corner. And it's not about, you're not here, so you can't do it, and we're not telling you why you can't do it.
Right.
We're trying to figure out ways you can,
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just picked that out of a hat just because that's what came to the top of my mind, to be honest with you. But there's a million different examples of that.
Right. It's the whole closed doors of the music business. You got to know somebody. All this stuff. They don't, whatever it is, they want to hear from people they don't already know. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to adjust and react to that.
Right. And people do every single day.
It's not my fault. People are willing to do stuff I'm not willing to do. Okay. Well, it's not my fault. Other people than my competition were willing to move to Nashville or New York or LA and write their butts off and wait tables for 10 years while they perfect their craft. And no, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
But also, what does it make possible? Like, maybe you're stuck, maybe you're on your commute right now and you don't want to be there. You don't want to be driving to work. You just want to wake up, put on your PJs and roll down to the home studio and record all day. Okay, maybe it's not your fault that you're in the position right now that you have to go day job. But you know what? It's your responsibility to use that time wisely, which you are, because you're listening to something that's going to benefit you on your commute. You're not just wasting that time. Same thing going, okay, while I was in school in Arkansas and felt like I had to be in school right then, what was I also doing? I was working on my craft.
Yeah.
I was working on my lyrics to get better. When I day jobbed and couldn't be writing as much as I wanted to, what was I doing? I was listening to podcasts. I was getting educated on things that were going to help me make that leap into a more creative life, that sort of thing. Keep my head in the game. Maybe it wasn't my fault. Maybe it was, but either way, it's my responsibility how I use that time.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's intentional
for using your time wisely. I think you're using your time wisely right now. Listen to this. Whatever you're doing, if you're driving to your day job, if you're walking the dog because you got to walk the dog, if you're rocking the baby, it's the middle of the night, you got earbuds in, and you don't want to be awake right now.
Yeah.
Rocking that baby, you know what? You're still doing something positive with time. Obviously, the baby stuff is positive, but also,
right. And one last quick example. I know we're running out of time, but man, so we just moved into this great new facility at Fort Knox, which is awesome, and I couldn't be happier. The management here, the people that own this building, are great, and they're just all about service, and they're happy to have us here. But 3.5 years, I was at this other company. I'm not going to mention their name, but it was a temporary office space company in corporate. And so I think people, this just hit me, but when I first went in there, so broke, 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I need to know what the rent's going to be. I needed an office space because I needed to grow this with interns. Then I've been blessed to do that. Right. And, but I need to know I can't afford any surprises. What is the rent going to be? I totally get where you're coming from, Johnny. Here's what it's always going to be. And the only things that are going to change is if you change it. If you use the boardroom, if you, print this much paper, if you blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then what happened? Literally for the next 18 months, they're trying to pay, I was getting it was supposed to be $600, and I'm getting $1,500 bills in the month. What is this, right? So that tends to freak people out. Not my fault that they're reneging on their deal,
right,
or there's some kind of disconnect. But it's my responsibility to go and make it happen. And it wore me out. Believe me, I had tons of conversations over and over and over again. I don't have time for this crap to fight for my life every single month,
right?
Because I would be done, right? I would be done. I'd be working it out of my house or something. And that wasn't an option for interns. I can't,
right, yeah,
female interns over to my creepy little apartment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's got to be professional. Yeah. So, take responsibility, people. It's your career. It's your life. It's your heart. Right. And you have to, ask yourself the things that are happening that aren't working the way you want them to work right now. If it's not your fault, remember, it is your responsibility to deal with it one way or the other. If it's getting a toxic person out of your band, or out of your life, if it's taking a couple of risks that you're going to need to take to and by risks, I mean it's like emotional risks, right? I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to record that song, and they're afraid to do your pay for publisher thing because they're afraid of what somebody might say, right? They're afraid they might find out they're not good enough yet. But so what? Like, even if you found that out, like now you know where the bar is, and now you know what you got to work on, right? And so you set it higher, and I mean, look for that. Like, eat that for breakfast, and that's all I got to say about that. The last thing I do want to tell you is that we have put together like a pretty killer program here for songwriters that are interested in high quality song demos that don't have access to killer talent. So, every month, like the legendary, and these guys are not just great musicians. They're like Nashville studio cat legends, Brent Mason, Bobby Terry, Buddy Hyatt. And I'm proud to say, and we're going to interview them. We interviewed him last episode, but our engineer just won a Grammy for best contemporary blues record with Kev Mo and Taj Mahal, man. This is the level of talent. You're getting like major label talent, and we'll do once a month, we'll do like a demo slam, like 30 songs. And it's a long day. And yes, we do 30 songs in a day. Like it's turn and burn, and they come out killer. But, we had conversations with all these guys, and they've all agreed to kind of give something back. They know how hard it is to break in. They know how hard it is for some people to gain access to talent like that. If you're not in Nashville and you don't know these guys, or even if you are in Nashville and you know them, you can't afford to get them for one song, right? It's cost prohibitive because you got to get a whole demo or whole studio for a whole session. It's 3 hours. You got to get the studio, the engineer. Those guys are not cheap.
Right.
And, but so we said, hey man, what if we did like 4 extra songs a month? Would you guys be willing to do that? It's a long day. 4 songs is 4 longer, right? 4 more longer. Everybody wants to get home and relax and reconnect with their families. But would you do that? And then we could allow like a super discounted rate where artists could and songwriters could come in and get a killer song demo recorded for them at the same price essentially that the publishing companies are going to pay. And they all agreed to do it, man. It's called the Song Demo Scholarship Program. And if you want to know information about it, just let me know. That it's info@daredevilproduction.com. Again, production is single. There is no S. info@daredevilproduction.com. Put Song Demo Scholarship Program in the subject line. The way we choose the songs, and we've already got a bunch of submissions, it's completely subjective. Like, honest to God, we're into the underdogs here. We're into helping people, real, because a great song demo is so much more than the possibility of getting even like on your pay for publisher event, right? And having a publisher go, oh my gosh, this is great. Like here, like I need you to contact me after this is over and let's start a relationship, kind of a thing. It's a calling card, right? Like it's other writers in your town. It's like, hey, I'm serious. I've taken responsibility for my career, and this is for real. And if you have it set up, you can go, if you go to I'll put a link on the show notes. But if you it's set up so that if you have your own studio, home studio, and you can mix and you can sing, but you just don't have access to the talent, man, it costs less. Like the less you need, the less you pay for. If you also need a pro vocalist, we can do that for a little extra money. And if you need a mix too, we can do that for a little extra money. So it's just kind of up to what you need or not. But there's a lot of climbers out there that have taken advantage of this in the past, and now we're kind of making it a thing, like a regular thing. Because before, it really was reliant on if a writer sort of fell out and I had some open space, I would shoot that out to my community and your community and let them know. But now it's going to be like a regular deal. And so we're going to pick 4 songs and we're going to go in there. So tell a story. If you got a story, let us know. Like, why should we pick your song? And then we'll get you in there. All right. So anyway, that brings us to the end of another Killer Climb episode. This podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.